Hello, YouTube. Look at me. Now look at yourself. Now back to me. Now back at yourself. Now back at me. Sadly, yo, this little thing is so dope. Hey, what's up YouTube? It's your boy Drew, and today we're taking a look at the Tilta Nucleus Nano wireless lens control system. So I have the control wheel here, and there's a motor attached to my lens right now. And so as I rotate this focus wheel, you can see I'm going out of focus, and then I can bring myself back into focus using the focus wheel here. So I mean, that's pretty cool. That's the basic functionality of this device. Wirelessly being able to control the focus ring on your lens. But it does also come with a few other cool features. So the first thing I'll mention is there is a record button right on top. So if you have the proper run stop cable, which I don't have on me right now, but basically once you connect that up, you can start and stop the recording of your camera body wirelessly as well. Some other things that this thing can do too, you can set A/B points. So let's just say you're trying to get a certain particular shot and you want to focus on one object and then rack focus to another object precisely. Kind of like what I did in the intro of this video. So essentially you can set up those 2 points as an A point and a B point, and then the focus wheel would lock those 2 points. And then you can rotate the entire distance of the wheel to point A, rotate the entire distance of the wheel to point B, and nail those 2 shots precisely every single time. And I'm sure you've seen that kind of technique used in Hollywood. I think it's a very great and powerful storytelling technique. And I'll show a few examples really quickly of what that looks like. And even if you're not rack focusing to a point A and a point B, just being able to manually control the focus and have complete control of what's in focus and what's not in focus, I think is a very cool thing to be able to do, especially wirelessly. So what's nice is this control wheel can essentially mount anywhere where there's a 1/4-20 thread where you can mount the plate. And then once you've mounted the plate that goes on the back of here, you slide this onto it and you have your focus wheel, you have your follow focus. So Tilta's designed this to work nicely with gimbals. So if you have like a Ronin S or even obviously Tilta's own G2X, you could mount this focus wheel onto the handle and then mount the motor onto your lens. And now you have this cool little manual focus system. So yeah, so that's the gist of the functionality. It's a wireless lens control system. So in this next part of the video, I'm gonna quickly kind of just walk you through how you would set this up on your camera. I'm not gonna go into too much detail because I think Tilta has done a very great job of doing some quick start videos. So I'll link them in the description if you have purchased this device and you want to get the more detailed setup guide. But what I'm going to quickly do is just show you, for those of you who are thinking about buying it, a rough idea of what it will take to get it on your camera, some things to kind of worry about as you set it up, and how to configure like the A/B points and how to calibrate it to your lens and things like that. So let's get into that. All right, so before we set up the Nucleus Nano, I do want to go over what you actually get in the kit when you make the purchase. So first off, it does come in this really nice case here. It's kind of like a hard shell case, but it does have some flex to it. And it has a really nice premium feel to it, and obviously keeps everything organized. So you could just throw this in your bag if you ever want to carry the Nucleus Nano around. So another thing that I love about this kit from Tilta is that it includes everything that you need to get started. So I'm just going to quickly go over what's inside here. The first is this charger. So this is the charger for the 14500 battery, I believe it is. These are the batteries here. They resemble AA batteries, but they are not AA batteries. I believe these are much more powerful, and they're actually lithium ion rechargeable batteries. So that's why we have this funny looking charger here with that. So next you have a male-to-male USB cable, and then you also have a cable that can connect to a gimbal. So I think this is made specifically for the Tilta gimbal, and I believe also the Ronin S gimbal can use this cable. And this is a cable that you can use to charge, that you can use to power the Nucleus motor. So if you're not using the gimbal to provide power to the motor, you will have to figure out some other solution for providing USB power to the Nucleus Nano motor. In my case, I'm actually using an external battery that I found on Amazon, and I'll show some pictures of it here, and I'll also link it in the description in case you want it. So moving on, as I said, we do have the two 14500 batteries. These are the batteries that are actually going to be used to power the focus wheel. There are two of them, but the focus wheel only takes one, so you have one extra. This is the plate that you'll be able to mount to the side of your camera if your camera has a cage, or mount it onto your gimbal, or figure out some other solution for mounting this, or you don't have to mount it at all. You can just hold this control wheel in your hand if you want, but this is the mount for it. Next, we have the focus wheel itself. So here it is. It's got this really nice wood finish, the Tilta logo there. It's got a battery door here, which is where you will insert the 14500 batteries. Some pins and the mechanism for attaching the focus wheel to the side of your camera or wherever, like I said before. We have three buttons on top here. A set button, which is going to be used for like setting the A/B points. We have an up and down arrow, which is used to navigate the menus, as well as used to change the channel on the focus wheel. And then we have a record button. So as I mentioned before, if you have the proper run stop cable, you could actually also use this to control the recording and stopping of your camera as well, in addition to the focus. This button also doubles as the power button. You just kind of hold it there, and that's used to turn on the actual wheel itself. And then lastly, we have the calibrate button, or it's written CAL here, and that's pretty obvious. It's used to start the calibration process. There is two types of calibrations. You have the auto calibration, which can be done by just simply holding down the calibration button for 3 seconds, and then it will begin to find the hard stops at your minimum and maximum focus distance. And if you're using a photography lens that does not have hard stops, you can use the calibration button to trigger the manual calibration process. Then we have the actual motor itself. So this is what actually is going to be in contact with the gears on the side of your lens. It slides on via a 15 millimeter kind of rod clamp here. On the front, you'll notice there's two buttons up and down that is used to change the channel. Just as a reminder, the channel on the motor obviously has to match the channel on the wheel for them to communicate. And then here you have two ports. You have a micro USB, which is used for providing power. And then you have another port that would be used for the run stop capability. And that's pretty much it. There's a LCD screen on the front here that will display some information like the channel and some other things as well. And I love how it's so compact. I think this is really neat solution, especially for smaller cinema lenses that don't require, you know, big beefy systems. This is really great to just throw on your gimbal, on your camera. It's light enough that it can still balance, and I'm always a fan of lighter setups, so this is a nice touch from Tilta. Next, we have the base plate, and this is the plate that you'll mount to the bottom of the camera, which would allow you to insert a 15mm rod next to your lens. And then with that rod, which we'll get into right here, with the rod there, you can mount the motor and then line up the motor with the gears on your lens, and then you'll be on your way to using the system. This is the 15mm rod, self-explanatory. It goes right here. You tighten this bolt up, you mount this to the bottom of the camera, and then that's how you get it on your camera. Oh, one other thing as well. Underneath here is an additional clamp. Now this is actually used for the Zhiyun crane. So basically this would wrap around the handle of the Zhiyun crane gimbal, and it provides you with a 1/4-20 thread here that you can mount this plate to, and then you can mount the follow focus wheel to that plate. And that's if you want to mount the follow focus wheel to your gimbal. So that's in there. Unfortunately, I do not have a crane any longer, so useless to me, but nice that Tilta thought of it. And then this is your bag of hardware. So this includes all of the little bolts, all of the Allen key wrenches and things like that that you'll need to get the base plate attached, to get the motor on, and to tighten everything up and everything else. So lastly, up top here, Tilta did provide 2 follow focus gears. So essentially you can wrap this around your lens, and now you have teeth for the follow focus motor to grip into to rotate the focus ring on your lens. And that's pretty much it. And like I said, what I love about this kit is everything that you need to get started is here. The only thing I would mention that you have to think about is how to get power to the follow focus motor if you're not using a gimbal. But other than that, everything is here. It's put together neatly. In this case, you can throw it in your bag, travel with it very easily. And yeah, so let's get into the setup. So setting up the nucleus on your camera is actually fairly straightforward. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the base plate with the 15mm rod and just attach it to the bottom of your camera. Now on my camera, I have a Tilta cage, so it has a number of different 1/4-20 points, but even if you didn't have a cage on your camera, there should still be a single 1/4-20 thread on the bottom of your body, and you can screw the base plate right to that. So we'll do that first. In the toolkit is both the base plate as well as the Allen wrench, or the Allen key, whatever you want to call it. I don't know the exact size, but this silver one in the pack, that's the one you use. And on the bottom of your camera, you would just mount it like so, and make sure it's snug. And there you go. So now we have our base plate mounted on the bottom. And now we're gonna go ahead and put the 15mm rod through here so that we could mount the focus motor onto the lens. So here I have the included 15mm rod, and I also have this very thin Allen key that we're gonna use to actually tighten up the bolt around the rod itself to keep it in place. So very simple, just put the rod here, and it's a very small nut and a very small Allen key, so you don't wanna over tighten anything. You just wanna make sure that it's not gonna move with whatever, camera jitters or things that happen. So now we have our rod, we have our base plate. We're gonna go ahead and put the motor on, and almost wrapped up. So then lastly, we have the motor itself, and then we'll go ahead and we'll slide that on. We want to make sure that the teeth on the motor matches nicely with the teeth on the lens. Now, I want to give a word of caution. In the kit, it does include these add-on focus rings that you can add onto your photography lens so that the focus motor can work with it. However, if you have a focus by wire photography lens like this Sigma 30 or the Sigma 16 that I'm using on the camera right now, this system, the Tilta Nucleus Nano system, will not work. And the reason isn't a fault of the system itself, it's the issue of having focus by wire. With a focus by wire system, when you rotate the focus ring, the focus distance is not linear with your rotation. It actually varies depending on how fast you rotate this ring. If I rotate this ring very fast, it's gonna throw the focus very far. If I rotate this ring very slowly, then it's gonna move the focus distance very slowly. So because it's not linear, there's no way to calibrate a follow focus to accurately pull focus every single time, because the focus motor speed is going to, affect the focus distance of your photography lenses. So just a rule of thumb, if your lens doesn't have the distance markings written on the lens or doesn't have the distance markings somewhere on the lens at all, it's probably a focus by wire lens and it's not gonna work. Even if you have a digital readout, that's still probably a focus by wire lens and most likely is not gonna work with the Tilta Nucleus Nano. I actually tried putting this on my Sigma with this focus gear like a dummy, not realizing that focus by wire really isn't compatible with a follow focus system in general. So keep that in mind. So what I had to do instead was I had to rent a lens that had a manual focus ring. So I actually decided to go with a true cinema lens, and this is the SLR Magic 35 T1.3. And I've actually had my eye on this lens for quite some time. It's very competitively priced, I would say, and the test footage that I've seen on YouTube really incredible. It has a lot of character, a lot of flares, and the bokeh is really nice and things like that. Maybe I'll do another review on that in a separate video. But another characteristic of cinema lenses is they have these really deep focus teeth on the focus ring. The gear on the focus ring is really deep and perfect for lining up with the gears on follow focus motors like this one here. So if you're using a cinema lens, most likely you're going to be good to go with the Tilta Nucleus Nano. Okay, now back to the setup. All right, so once you've tightened down your motor, you've lined it up with the focus ring, you're pretty much all set to go. The only thing you have to do now is actually provide power to the focus motor and then put the battery in the follow focus wheel and then start the calibration. So what I've done here is I've actually bought a little battery pack, and I can link this battery pack if you're curious, if you want it. And I bought like a small rig, kind of like a phone holder. I don't know if this is actual phone holder or if it might actually be meant for holding external batteries. In either way, so it mounts right to my Tilta cage. I mount the battery here, and then I could just run a USB cable from the battery to the focus motor to power it. Now, if you're using a gimbal, there is a cable included in the set as well, so you can attach the focus motor right to the gimbal and use the gimbal's battery to power the focus motor as well. Once it sees power, it's actually going to power on automatically. There is no on-off button. So what you could do is, what I do is, on my battery pack itself, I can double tap to turn this off. That cuts the power to the motor, turns the motor off. And then when I want the motor to turn back on, I power back on the battery pack and the motor will turn back on. All right. So now let's get to the focus wheel itself. So the focus wheel is even more straightforward, right? You're just gonna install the battery by opening up the battery door right here. The positive terminal goes up, you close it, and then you hit the record button on top to power it on. And then as soon as you power it on, you'll see there is a big number along with some other information on the screen, but the number on the left-hand side is what you want to pay attention to. That is the channel that the focus wheel is on. The focus wheel and the follow focus motor have to be on the same channel to communicate with one another. So once you power on the focus motor, you'll also see a big number. Make sure those two match, and then the motor and the follow focus wheel should be able to talk to each other. And then we can get into setting it up. So once you have the battery installed, you can decide where you want to place the mounting plate for the focus wheel. So basically, there's a little 1/4-20 screw that goes right here on the plate. And now you can mount this on the side of your camera. If you want the focus wheel to go on the side of the camera, you can mount this on the side of your gimbal, or you could do what I've done and created your own little wireless follow focus handle where I can mount my monitor on top here. I mount my focus wheel on the side here, and now I have my own little wireless follow focus system. So I'm just gonna go ahead and mount that here. This is what the Allen key looks like for the bolt on the follow focus motor. I'm sorry, in the follow focus control wheel mount plate. And I could just slide this control wheel like that. And now I have this cool little follow focus system here. Now I would love to take credit for this idea, but I have to shout out Caleb from DSLR Shooter. Yes, DSLR Shooter YouTube. I'll link his channel somewhere around here, but he actually gave me the idea for creating this wireless follow focus kind of system here. So I'll link it in the description if you want to know where all the parts are to create this for yourself. But what's nice is I have a monitor mount right here, so I can mount a monitor on top and then use this to pull the focus wirelessly. Okay, so let's get into how you calibrate the focus motor to your lens and how you can set up the AB points. So if you have a manual focus lens, like the one I have here that has hard focus stops on the ring, then calibrating the motor to your lens is a very simple process. All you have to do is hold the CAL or CAL button here for 3 seconds. You'll get a little haptic feedback, and the motor will begin to calibrate itself automatically to your lens by finding the full focus throw of your lens at each point, the minimum focus and the maximum focus distance. So now let's say you have a photography lens that doesn't have hard focus stops and you want to calibrate the motor to that lens. The process is still very simple, but just a few more steps. So what you'll first do is you'll rotate the follow focus wheel to its minimum focus distance, and that will be counterclockwise. And you'll also set your lens to its minimum focus distance. Then what you'll do is you'll double tap the calibrate button and begin to slowly rotate the wheel until your lens hits its maximum focus, and then double tap to finalize the calibration. And that's it. Your photography lens, albeit a manual lens, but a photography lens, would be adapted to the Tilta Nucleus Nano motor. So last few things I want to just mention about what this thing can do. So it has a record button on the top, as I mentioned earlier in the video. And basically, if I had the proper run stop cable, I would be able to demonstrate it here. But with that cable, the proper cable for your camera, you would connect it to the bottom of the motor and then into your camera body. And then you would be able to control wirelessly starting and stopping the recording of your video as well, which I think is pretty neat. The last thing I'll mention is that this follow focus wheel is also compatible with the larger Nucleus M motor. And so if you're planning on getting a larger system like that, you can still take advantage of this follow focus wheel. So I like that there's the integration between both of the product lines from Tilta. All right, so thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next video.